Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Tonight's announcement is a reminder that the Autumn Fest is being put on by the Parks and Rec and will be held Saturday, October 5th, 11 to 4. That's this coming Saturday. We're opening the meeting, and shortly we will be going into non-public session.
Well,
although that,
yeah, actually,
we're going to flip that.
Yeah, because the Board of Assessors had to reschedule for next week.
What I'm wondering, though, I don't know if we have. We've got 45 minutes between now and when John's coming.
No, John, I let John know.
So he's coming?
So he's going to try to get here as quick as he can.
Perfect.
He's going to try to get here for 6:05, but.
Perfect. Otherwise, I'd say we can do the non-public first, but we'll do that later. Good. New items of business while we wait for John to come. Anything on?
No, I apologize. I realized I had not sent out that adjusted presentation. I'll get that out to you this week.
Okay. Just trying to look,
It's a modest construction.
Sounds like him.
Yep. I noticed that today I just signed that LaFleur Drive private road agreement. Do you know if the building inspector or somebody was in contact with them approving that road name and the requirement to put up the street sign?
Not as of yet.
Okay.
I know the notice we got last week was from the building inspector. That was so.
Okay.
He had already done the research, and there was no, according to the letter last week, there was no conflicting names in town. So that was from him. So.
Right, and we approved that
Right.
last week. So as
Yeah.
long as they know.
Yeah.
Good evening, John.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
Let's see if there's anything else up here quickly. We're ready.
So I'm here because you guys asked the planning board to submit a zero-based budget.
We asked everybody. Yeah,
Everybody.
yeah.
And so the planning board, you know, in my time as chair, which is short, has three kinds of business. Routine business, things which come from the select board, and let's call them member items from the planning board. So, for example, you know, we'll have the normal subdivisions and site plans and those types of things. Members on the planning board this past few months have come up with, we should incentivize road construction, which would, in some manner, which if we were to pursue something like that, would require us to engage the engineer. In other words, there are costs associated with it. That's an individual member. Other members have talked in board meetings about post-subdivision completion road inspection and adding that to the subdivision regulations, which would have a cost associated with doing that. There's an amendment to the RSA, well, an amendment to, I guess, our zoning regulations on top of the RSAs for off-site improvements, which I have some concerns about how that's drafted, and I think it needs to go to council if the board decides to approve it, or possibly beforehand. And then, for example, we heard from the select board the consideration of should we define a commercial district. So, you know, for the commercial district, so we're essentially changing the master plan somewhat. So the question is that a small change to the master plan, in which case the municipal association can do it, and we're getting a quote, it's about $2,000. Would there be a more comprehensive change? So I'm assuming it's gonna be the small one, but I would build that into the budget request. So the question for the select board is, do they see other things coming down the pipe in the next year or so that should be built into the planning board budget? At least to let everybody know that this is in there.
I guess my first question, John, is why are the planning board members themselves not stepping up to handle some of these items versus it seems you're suggesting, or they're suggesting that they come up with recommendations of
Sure.
what should be done and then delegate it out to someone else to do the work. Where I believe in the past, it was kind of a joint effort.
Well, in some cases, we have done the work. So someone did the work on off-site improvements. There's a question of, do the board members want to take on updating the master plan? Or would we have?
Well, off-site improvements and master plan, we talking two different items?
Two different
Okay,
things, yeah.
okay.
So in some cases, we do. And in some cases, we would need to get outside expertise or ask questions. And those are just things we'd have to budget for, or we'd want to budget for.
For example,
For example, updating the master plan,
mhm.
so.
What sections are you going to update? You going, plan to
Well,
update
at the
the
very least,
entire?
at the very least, the question is what type of commercial district, is it an existing commercial district definition, are we gonna change those? Are we gonna use the light industrial definition that I think is in there? The maps would have to be updated once we identify areas, you know, those
Would-
types of things.
Which we have the
Is there
tax
no
maps
commercial
updated
districts?
every year. Correct, there isn't. I think what the board was discussing as far as a commercial district
Yeah,
was just looking at the land that the town owns at the transfer station. And whether or not that would be a viable option of segregating a section of that land, which is not really in a residential neighborhood.
sure.
It falls under the prime location of having access to two highways and just focusing on that. If that were to ever grow, then that's a future thing, but at least this is a one step where we felt we're kind of incentivizing what the master plan was asking for in developing small business
Sure.
areas.
Yeah.
And just feedback. I'm curious if it's been discussed at the planning board, what their,
We haven't had deep discussions on it, but what has come out of it has been, is that if we have to update the master plan to define that, either it's the maps or the area or a specific type of district, is that the board members would want some assistance in doing that.
why would the master plan need to be updated versus zoning ordinances or what need to be
Against the
updated?
zoning ordinance.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the master plan, but
So,
there's definitions of, as we've always said to applicants, especially some on the zoning board, when they come in and we tell them, well, yes, we realize the zoning ordinance mentions about the limited commercial district and light industrial, but we don't have any of those. It's all by special exception. So,
Right, and some area needs to be designated for commercial such that a person can do things by right rather than having to go
Yeah.
to the Board of Appeals.
kind of like an incubator space, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, it makes, I look at it as it makes sense anyway. It's an area that is not being utilized.
yeah,
Like I said, I mean, I'd much rather see, if we're gonna put up another metal building of some sort, let's put it up, you know,
Out of
where
the
it's
way.
out of the way, where instead of right in the middle of the town, you know, right next to the schools and everything else, like we keep putting everything else up. I mean, I think it's awesome that our businesses are doing well enough to expand and build, but I think if we had an area that we go, yeah, it's great, and we have an area that's perfect for you,
Yeah,
up the road a ways.
I agree with John,
Yeah.
but I'd like to designate several areas, not just one or.
Well, I think if we at least start with one, it's a start, you
Okay.
know?
Yeah.
Because I think that's an area that we wouldn't get much pushback on, just my opinion, where if you start going, okay, we're gonna do this area as industrial, and people go, well, what do you mean by light industrial? What do you mean, you know? I mean, one of our neighboring towns is fighting that right now, where they've had basically a dump for years and years and years, but someone else just bought it, and now the neighbors go, we don't want a dump. They're like, we've had one there for all these years.
Yeah.
But because it's never been zoned, he was under a special exception, now they can push back. Where I think if we just have, let's, like David said, incubate one area, see how it goes, work with that, and then go on. I think that area is prime location for it.
And I think for budgeting purposes, it doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't fall under the purview of the planning board. We were just trying to put that concept out there to get the feedback from the boards, because
Yeah.
to be honest with you, I don't even know if all of that land could be made to work. I know some of it has wetlands on it, so I think if it was something that we were getting feedback from the planning board or, you know, one of the other land use boards to say, hey, we think that might work. So then I think it would be our due diligence at that point to budget money to hire an engineering firm to go out there, survey and calculate it all out, to say, yeah, we can make it work.
So the select board would do that.
Yeah, yeah. Or, hey, I'm one for delegating. If somebody else wants to do it, that's fine.
But I think we're probably, I mean, I think what we're looking for is, okay, as the planning board, looking at it, is it something that, you know, there'd be pushback on, and what are your thoughts on why? And what stumbling blocks do you see in developing that area?
Yeah, well, the pushback is an interesting context in light of the fact that it seems like that area would have exceptional cellular telephone service,
It would have what?
exceptionally good cell service.
That would
Yeah,
just make it
yeah.
perfect
Yeah.
for industrial.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
So we'll see how.
It's kind of weak right now in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that was one. I didn't know if the board had any other things they were looking at for the next year, as far as things they wanted the planning board to explore that might have.
Anything
costs
that you're
associated with it.
contemplating
Anything that I'm contemplating?
that, because when I got your email, I asked you to elaborate and I didn't
Well,
get anything, so I didn't know if,
I think that there is a real interest in, the idea of updating subdivision regulations to do a better job in verifying the completion of work in subdivisions. Whether it's let's say hypothetically, a cluster subdivision or a 2 or 3 house subdivision, where it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of monitoring of what's going on in some of the work. And that might be a cost, that would be a cost that would largely be passed on to the developer.
Sure.
but that falls under the purview now of the planning board.
Some of it does, some of it relates to building permits and certificates of occupancy, which don't fall under the purview of the planning board.
Okay, let's make a hypothetical here.
So,
Building certificate of occupancies and building permits are solely for building.
solely for building.
Solely for building. Your building permit does not cover you for, let's say, location of utility lines that by the planning board's requirement are to be underground and not
Yes.
overhead. The building permit cannot be held up because of that.
So who, in the case of that regulation, who enforces that?
Well, the planning board as members, sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
The planning board as members know what they've approved, what they haven't approved, what the conditions are.
Yeah,
And if each one, I think, take this responsibility of, hey, when I go by, I'm just gonna take a look.
gonna do an inspection.
No, not inspection, but hey, is it being done? We have asked the code enforcement officer
Yeah.
to take on those duties to know what restrictions have been placed. And what we had found out, and we think we repaired, broken link was approvals from a board or a committee not reaching him until after the fact. So hopefully that's been,
That'll change. in the
yes,
future.
so,
So I'll bring one up because I had it on my list because
Go
I was
ahead.
going to ask tonight anyway. Has that stone wall been replaced and that driveway removed on Ashby Road?
don't know.
Okay.
Don't know. But I went by a subdivision that had been approved by the planning board. And you know, our subdivision regulations say all utilities are to be underground.
Yep.
And there are the poles with the lines going overhead.
Yep.
Who picks that up?
That's a void.
It's a void. It's a void. Now, it wasn't published in the order of conditions, I'm sure, because that's in our subdivision regulations.
So, it's also a void that's not bonded. And therein lies the enforcement difficulty.
Well, one thing I might suggest on that one is that maybe the planning board send a letter to the utility company to notify them directly that any subdivisions are required to have service underground. So when they go out, when they get a call, hey, I'm looking for service, they'll be able to tell them, well, you can't go overhead on a subdivision in New Ipswich. We've been notified of that.
Okay.
That was the only thing that I
Well, why
thought,
can't that be a part of a certificate of occupancy? Or, I mean, it can be, right?
because the certificate of occupancy is only for the construction of the building. That's, when you look at building code, that's where the parameters of filing for a building permit, all of the inspections, and once you've done that, you get your certificate of occupancy,
Okay,
so.
so,
But those are the things that, you hang around long enough, you start seeing these things and you say, how can we fix this? It's not working. And the worst thing to do is going to somebody after the fact. They'll say, I didn't know that, I don't, and, we can always say, well, you're supposed to know. But
yeah,
we're back to that situation where if we let them know right up front, it would certainly make our life a little easier.
it might. I don't know how the planning board's gonna feel about taking on that responsibility. I mean, unlike the building inspector's paid, right?
They're a stipend.
They get a
Yeah.
stipend.
You mean to draft a letter is,
The board is the board is volunteers, which have to go from time to time and inspect these projects.
oh no, I'm not asking them to go and inspect them. That's not what I'm asking. As we've always kind of said here in town,
Yeah,
most enforcement is coming from a telephone call that somebody says, hey, how is this happening?
yeah.
Okay, let us go look, and then it gets addressed. How can we make it that we don't even get the phone call?
Mm.
Because A, we've either made it an order of a condition or noted to an applicant on a site plan, utilities need to be noted that they're going underground. And I'm using that as an example. I'm sure another one that came up one time was driveway. It came up at the zoning in that driveways are considered a structure. And a driveway got constructed right along the wetlands, which is supposed to have 50-foot, 100-foot setback. So now whenever they come in before zoning, that's one of the lessons learned. Oh, don't forget, driveway's a structure, you can't go along the wetlands. So I don't wanna belabor, that's just
Yeah.
discussion
no,
stuff.
So, No, I just didn't know if there was anything that the board saw coming for the next year that we'd have to budget for.
Were you talking about the one on Turnpike Road?
Oh, this one was on Wheeler Road, the one that I recall.
Because I can't remember whether the one on Turnpike also was overhead coming off.
Oh, for overhead, yes,
Yeah.
Turnpike Road.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about the one.
No, the one. No, I'm talking about
Yes,
the one.
Turnpike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I noticed that the other day. I was like, man, that just because it's just one of those things. You're driving down, all of a sudden you're like, wow, when did those go in?
Mm.
Yeah. And now's the perfect time before they put loam down.
So other than the commercial district, is there anything else that you all see as highlights for next year for you guys that you want the planning board to look at? I mean, we know we have a couple of ongoing things.
We spoke as select board of, one of the goals was to try and make the downtown area more attractive, whether we brought in that Plan New Hampshire, who's the other one? Southwest Regional Planning came in and gave us some guidance. We had a gentleman from the UNH
The cooperative.
come in and give us guidance, but sometimes I feel we're working in a vacuum because the select board and the planning board don't meet together. Bert's our liaison on the committee,
Yeah,
but it would be beneficial, I think, if we could get all the boards and committees together just to have a discussion about goals, objectives, and thoughts.
yeah. So, well, I don't know if that'll happen before October 15th, but that's why I did it tonight.
Okay.
But that.
It
that
would
type
have
of-
no impact on your budget.
I know, but that type of discussion among different boards is common in some towns.
Yeah, yeah.
So, not that Bert does a bad job.
I'm sure he does a fine job. He communicates back to us what's going on there.
So that was it.
Awesome.
So you know what you're budgeting?
Huh?
You know what you're budgeting for?
Yep.
How's the limb doing?
No crutches,
That's good.
much of the time, like not all the time. So it's getting there.
Nice. Well, they didn't have to take you out into a field and shoot you, so you're doing all right.
Yeah, I don't think you'd have a
You're
chance
so
to draw.
optimistic.
Remember, I didn't come from downstate New York, I came from upstate New York. So, but, alrighty, well, that was it.
Very good.
Awesome.
Alright,
Thank you.
Thank you, Joan.
Yep.
Thanks, John.
take care.
So I'll see if I can make a point of driving past that other, the one on Ashby Road and see what that one looks like. And so who need?
What was that? Oh, yeah. I
no.
would check first with Debbie or Laurie because I thought a letter went out to them.
Okay.
Yeah, there was some sort of enforcement.
Just
I just want to see,
Yeah.
and then I figure I want to see if anything's been done, and then check again on
Okay.
who was supposed to, and then obviously if the one on Turnpike, now we have to find out has a letter gone out on that.
it has not. I can assure you of that. Should we try and? I know we're getting right into the budget season, but try and schedule something with those boards for a joint discussion on anything, or?
Maybe just the chairman of the various boards, rather than.
Well, I mean, I'd say
Entire
invite
Yeah.
the chairman, and then say, obviously if any other members can make it, feel free.
Yeah,
but-
I mean, most
Yeah.
people would say,
Exactly.
Well,
Well,
that's
that's what I
their
mean.
decision.
So, yeah.
You know, if they wanna come, great, they don't.
yeah, sure.
I'd say
I mean-
we can get something out to
I mean,
them.
we're pretty occupied our next meeting with the
Did I have down, we,
assessors.
We got
so that's got moved off to next
the
week,
8th.
yeah, then, I thought on the 15th we were starting
Budgets.
with the budgets. Did I send you an email about doing a schedule?
No, we talked about it,
Okay.
but if you have a specific order you'd like them in,
Just
available.
no two big ones on one night, really.
Yeah, that's right. Now we had the discussion,
yeah,
but other than that, I don't think it would
Yeah,
matter.
yeah, because I mean, there's nights we've had like 6 in one night, and we've been done in a half hour, because some of them are just
Yeah, we
pretty
did it.
straightforward. They get an explanation, and we go from there, you know, but.
But if we don't get something out to them soon, I think,
well, I was gonna, I'm having a staff meeting tomorrow morning, so I was gonna do a poll there on, you know, who might wanna go first.
I think you'll be making that decision.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna volunteer.
No, you don't think so?
I doubt it.
Nicole already said that she's not gonna have her budget ready by the 15th.
Well, tell Nicole we'll cut money out every day she's late.
Exactly. Perfect.
She's got plenty of time. Before it was, I think she wasn't aware of how to do the budgets, and we went through that.
So just a heads up on that. Also on Chief Lund preferred the 29th to have the state come in and do the presentation for the Heart Safe Committee. Is that date good for you?
Works fine for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question on, since we're scheduling stuff, have we arranged a date yet with the state regarding the cemetery issue?
I have not contacted him yet.
No, we. Trying to think of where we left that.
They didn't wanna come here and we didn't wanna go there.
I didn't get anything. No, that's where we left it. We have no response back from Bart on them coming here. Bart is the one who had indicated that, well, I don't know if they're gonna wanna come down.
Okay,
And the last correspondence to him was, we'd like them to come down, him and them.
okay, and wasn't that 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
What do you got in your notes? I don't, let me see, 2 weeks ago would have been the 17th, and I don't see anything.
I'm
I
just,
think it was prior to my arrival.
right.
So I
Okay.
was here at the 17th.
Okay. Yeah, right here, 10th. Discussing about the state, Beals felt that the grade should not be moved, need to look at access to Benny Hill. Oh, speaking of which, while Scott and I were out around town today, I was noticing that what I thought they could come down if you're facing the cemetery with the toe of the dam on your left. I thought maybe they could come right down that outside drive-in right out to Benny Hill. But it appears that, I don't know if the toe goes this way and the graves go this way, that it's,
A little narrow.
might get too narrow. We did look at the deed for the right of way, to accept there was an easement for the state to the.
Yeah, and then we looked at
Yeah.
we did look at the deed too for the easement for the memorial in the back.
Yeah,
And they are, according to, if I understand what they're using now, they are using state road to get back to part of their easement
right,
instead of coming around to our property and then to it.
which is what I think they would find out we would need to. I had another note here though, John. Check to see if there was an easement from the state to the town for the state property. In other words, for us to get to the cemetery behind the state property, do we have an easement to go on that road that's there?
I don't know. Yeah. I didn't see anything in the paperwork that said it, so.
No?
No, not that I could see. The only easement that I could see being discussed was the morals in the
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
But you'd have to think that there's, well, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Kind of the issue. A lot of assumptions.
okay. Scott, have you, been introduced yet to, Bob Mayor? Or do you know him? Town council?
Have not been introduced.
Okay. Would you like to give him a call tomorrow? Just introduce yourself and then ask him for a follow-up on, 'cause I think Joanne sent him the email about trying to schedule that.
Okay.
What else we have, other than the non-public item?
Yeah, no, I don't have anything else.
Brett?
Nope.
No?
Which one do we want to go first? This one or well?
Can we do both?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Motion to go into non-public under 91A3 2E, consideration of pending claims. L, consideration of legal advice. And also C, matters which discussed in public would likely adverse the reputation of any person or persons.
Second.